Well, thank you, everyone. Yep, hello all. That's Kiran. She's a parent and now a board member. So thank you, Kiran. So thank you, everyone, for being here. This is our Child Life Specialist panel. It's going to be hosted by Lisa Arjun from ABC 7 News. I am Purvi Shah. I'm the founder of Kids&Art Foundation. I just want to share that today is September 25 and today is Amay's anniversary. We lost him exactly 9 years ago. So it's a hard day for me, but this is Amay's legacy, and we are doing this for him. He guides me along the way. So welcome.
Thank you.
Lisa, welcome. Thank you so much for jumping in. Lisa Arjun is a mother to 3 grown children and meteorologist at ABC 7 in San Francisco. She started her career in 1989 in Knoxville, then took a quick stop in Chicago before making her home in San Francisco in 1995. After raising 3 children in the Bay Area and working full-time until 2003, Lisa now enjoys part-time and fill-in duties at ABC 7's San Francisco station, KGO. During her career as an award-winning meteorologist, Lisa has mastered the ability to take complex meteorological data and present it in a concise, palatable format. Additionally, Lisa has worked closely with an internal team to raise awareness about the already present effects of climate change. In addition to her professional career, Lisa has been and remains an active participant in the communities in which she raised her children. Lisa today is in conversation with Maureen Stice from Children's Hospital in Michigan, Michael Town from UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital, and Wendy Celaya from Kaiser. I want to share that patient families from all 3 hospitals create with Kids&Art. Yes, COVID has a silver lining. Patients from Michigan can join us, and we have patients in Alaska creating with us too. So without further ado, Lisa, please take it on.
Thank you, Purvi. Thank you all for being here, and it's great to be with everyone. I'm so excited to be a part of this. And I want to start with just each of you telling me a little bit about what you and your hospital provides for the children, and we'll go through all 3 of you, and then we can get into maybe some examples as if you have any work from the children and some questions after that. Michael, I'll start with you. I think you had the biggest setup there at a UCSF Children's Benioff. So go ahead, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I'm excited to be here and to be talking with my lovely fellow panelists and talking about the work of child life departments and specialists. So yes, I am the manager of UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital in San Francisco. We also have our sister hospital in Oakland, Benioff Children's Hospital, Oakland. And here at Mission Bay in San Francisco, we have about 25 child life specialists in both inpatient and outpatient. We have a very robust school, which is one of the schools of San Francisco Unified. We also have a smaller but mighty creative arts team, including art therapists, music therapists, an internal television channel with people that run that and do video and other creative work with technologies. We also have poets in residence. And then we also have a part of our department that supports parents who have a child in the hospital, including parent liaisons. So parents who were formerly in our care who are now supporting other parents. And last, but certainly not least, I could not leave out our canine companions for independent facility dogs. We have 2 dogs. One is Momo and the other is Venti. And so they are important members of our team.
I'm sure they're big hits.
Part of this panel.
Yeah, excellent. How many kids now are in your facility?
Well, we have capacity for, let's see, 118 at any one moment. And that does not include our intensive care nursery. We have or NICU. We have a large bed, 58 bed intensive care nursery. And then also, interestingly enough, under the umbrella of the Children's Hospital is labor and delivery. And so there's a lot of work that we do just as obviously support families, including those families who have a high-risk pregnancy that would then result in a child coming to our NICU.
Excellent.
Intensive care unit for anyone who doesn't know the jargon. Sorry, I have to remind myself to not use all the jargon terms.
No, that's great. That sounds like, I think yours was really full and very active, but now is it Maureen? You're from Detroit, so welcome. Tell us a little bit about your situation there.
Hi, I'm Maureen Stiles. I work at the Children's Hospital of Michigan, where I'm one of the Child Life seniors, one of two, who oversee our Child Life department, which is comprised of 10 Child Life specialists, 2 Child Life fellows who have a year-long fellowship, and then we have our alternative therapies department, which is art, music, yoga, and school. We have 2 part-time school teachers, one that is funded through Detroit Public Schools, which is our public school here in the city, and then one that is funded for just hospitalized children.
Okay, and how big is your facility?
We have the capacity for 224 patients.
Okay, and Wendy, tell us a little bit about where you are. You're Kaiser, right?
Yeah. So I'm Wendy Salai. I'm one of the child life specialists here at Kaiser Santa Clara. I've been in child life for 10 years. So the first 6 years I worked in our pediatric unit in our pediatric ICU. And then we expanded to our outpatient subspecialty clinics, which was very exciting. We're a little bit smaller and cozier, so there's only 3 of us. So 2 inpatient child life specialists and then myself on the outpatient world. So we unfortunately don't have art therapists and music therapy, but we definitely try to do as best as we can as child life to fill some of those, roles, but then also rely heavily on volunteers as well.
Right. Okay. So I don't think anyone doubts the connection and healing with art and therapy, but it's interesting just to kind of go over the mind-body connection. These kids are using art as therapy, and for a minute, maybe they get a little bit of a break from their disease, their loneliness. And it's interesting how the brain really reacts to it. The brain waves, there's changes in neurotransmitters and hormones. So can any of you speak to some of the experiences that you've had in particular with, how if the kids are a little reluctant or if they take to it, maybe what is their most popular medium that they've used, or an example maybe of a child who really has enjoyed it and has been transformed by art. Wendy?
Yeah, I think in general, like we as child life, right, we play so many roles, and we always try to use distraction and art and all these other modes while a kid is here getting treatment or, having a procedure done. And I think, a lot of times we can see a kid be very anxious or scared or worried about something, and we're focusing that shift onto something else that's enjoyable, right? Maybe they were a really big fan of art before. Maybe they're trying new modes of art while they're here. And you really see them calm down, but also just connect with a different side and be able to open up, express themselves. So we definitely use art on a daily basis, just as us, right, in our little toolbox as child life specialists. But I think nobody denies that it definitely helps these kids.
Right. So Maureen, do you have something that comes to mind that you want to share about some of the kids you've worked with?
Yeah, I will speak to our art therapist does a really good job of really assessing each and every kid that she works with to be able to see what mediums maybe would speak better to Susie versus Johnny. So she really takes that into consideration when she's working with patients and families too, because those are a part of her intervention. But we had one little boy who was here at the hospital with us, and he never really wanted to talk about what he called the bad stuff. He never really wanted to talk to the child life specialists about them, and even, starting to work with the art therapist, that kind of stuff was off limits. But she presented this project to him, and he was very young. He was 5, so I'm gonna hold it up so you guys can see it. But it's a wall. So they started to name kind of the bad stuff around in the red. So they worked on it together quite frequently, and then they broke away the wall. And we can kind of see in the yellow where we broke it away are the things that he could pick out that are the good things. And without being able to do that, without using art, he wasn't able to express those things, you know, just off the cuff and say, what are the bad things? He wasn't able to say that. But using art as a medium and kind of chipping away, she was really able to get at those things to help express, for him to express himself, to say, you know, what are the things that are really scary about the hospital? Or what are the things that we really don't like? And then also, what are the things that are really good about me and the things that I can feel really good about? So that was one experience that was really, really cool that she did.
That's cute. He was only 5. How long
Yeah.
did that take? Was it like a couple-day process or a week?
It was probably a little bit longer than that. They worked on it pretty consistently for a while. So
Yeah. And that's inspiring for you and for the
absolutely.
therapist for sure. Yeah. Okay. So Michael, do you have anything to share of recent that was kind of touching for you?
Oh yeah, we have a really interesting thing going on right now. I mean, I so like what my colleagues are talking about, that and the importance of not only the expression, like Wendy was talking about, and also that way of bringing things to awareness, like Maureen was also talking about. We have a young girl who is now 6, I think, but when she came to us, she was 5, and her name is Joy, great name, but she's in our bone marrow transplant unit. And she tends to be a rather shy, reclusive little girl. But our art therapist and our child life specialist who works in the bone marrow transplant unit have been working with her. And who knew, but she is a prolific artist and poet. And it's been a really interesting process to, you know, where I sit a little bit from afar, but to see her unfold in this powerful young girl with a voice about her experience. And our team has done a fantastic job of kind of scaffolding things for her. So not only have the poets been working with her, but the art therapists and the child life specialists have been not only helping her express herself and get out those things that are internal. You know, one of the interesting things about art is sometimes words just fail us, right? They don't fully capture our experience. And so like what Maureen was showing with that beautiful piece of art, it's taking that processing to a whole nother level. And in this case, Joy wanted to share her artwork and her poetry. And so our team figured out how to have little gallery showings. So this is a nursing unit. There's no gallery space. So they figured out how to take over a meeting room on the unit and put up her artwork and her poetry and send out little invitations. Let's see if I can show this well enough. Little invitations for people to come.
Oh, that's great.
To the gallery showing.
That's cute.
And she's already in strict isolation because of her bone marrow transplant. Obviously during pandemic, due to COVID, it's even more stringent. So she obviously couldn't physically be there, but she zoomed in as the celebrity artist.
Yeah.
So people could talk with her about her artwork and her poetry. And this, you know, shy and reclusive young child is, you know, finding a voice. That's one of the interesting things about poetry. When we first started our poetry program, you know, years ago, I kind of, you know, recollected that a lot of people, you know, talk about being forced to do poetry in school as not really wanting to do it and not finding the passion for it. When you're in a difficult circumstance like this, you know, being in a hospital setting, facing illness, facing the treatment of that, suddenly these young kids have a voice, need to have a voice, and find it through these creative outlets, getting out those experiences, expressing themselves in ways that they didn't know that they needed before being in this kind of a setting.
And what a, pardon the pun, a little shot in the arm for her when she zoomed in and saw all these people, right, at her gallery.
She's a celebrity and she's being, you know, showcased, and there's a whole sense of community that's building around her via her artwork, via her being a creative person and sharing that part of herself with others. And
Wow.
of course, it's really meaningful to all the staff as well, right? Because to see something very humanistic about her.
That's fantastic. Now, how do you all feel about the I don't know, I could say accountability of the hospitals in treating the whole child. They're there for tests, they're there for chemo, they're there for their medicine, but we talked about dance and art. I mean, it's donor-based, but do you have any suggestions, or how do you think we can make the program better, Wendy, for, for the future, for these kids, how they need this for their healing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for us, some of the really smaller programs, it's really hard, right, to expand. It's hard to expand just child life, right? So how do we get, a music therapist, art therapist, and, those, different avenues that are so important that we need. So I think a lot is building our volunteer network and trying to, maybe rely on a grant or a different community organization that could help supplement some of those resources, but it's so important, right? I mean, it's beyond just the medicine, right? We really need to make sure we're providing care for that whole child.
Right. Maureen, too, do you feel like your hospital is working with you as much as they can, or any frustrations?
Absolutely. I think that everything that they can do, they have helped us and support us in our mission to really treat the whole child. And I really appreciate avenues like this, because I think it's important not only for, child life specialists and art therapists to advocate for our services, but also for parents to know that, we're out here to help, a patient or a child, if your child were to come in the hospital, and that these services are available. So sometimes, it just takes a parent asking, do you have this service, so that we can help kind of go to that next level of that patient that maybe we wouldn't see, but that maybe would really benefit.
Right. Now, I was on the website and I saw how they had a link at the DeYoung here for the Frida Kahlo exhibit, and I thought that was so cool. Do you guys work with anyone locally, any local museums where the kids could Zoom and see an exhibit or something virtual like that?
Not to Zoom, but we have some volunteers from the DIA, not at this time, but in non-COVID times, that would come in and they would work with the kids. So that is usually really cool.
And you guys are
the DIA is the Detroit Institute of Arts. It's right up the street on just one of our main streets here in Detroit. Sorry.
But I just want to put a plug in for Kids&Art, right? That's the whole, Childlife tends to partner with great fellow not-for-profit organizations. And so Kids&Art is a fantastic example of, we are not able to do it all by ourselves. And Childlife tends to not be, hospitals understand it now as a standard of care, and even creative arts oftentimes as a standard of care. But there isn't governmental mandating.
Right.
Hospitals tend to have low margins. And so if you're trying to decide between, an MRI machine or child life specialists, or, a physician and creative arts therapists, it's a very difficult decision to make. And so what we tend to do in Child Life is partner with a lot of fantastic not-for-profits that offer something like artwork or theater or good museum-like offerings, a whole variety of things that bring enrichment and curriculum and opportunity for kids to partner, do those kinds of activities via that collaborative effort. So thank goodness for Kids&Art.
Yeah. And I just want to echo that too, because we could not do what we do without this, right? Like we promote this with our families, especially, here, and just telling them, hey, when it was in person, right? Families loved it. Now families are getting used to Zoom too, but every single family, we tell them about Kids&Art. And every week we have okay, what are they doing this week up in clinic? And really making sure we highlight that, so that way these families can build these outside connections and get, all this extra support that they deserve.
Right. Now, has anything surprised you, all of you panelists, like certain mediums that have really taken off with the kids, or, I know we talked about displaying some of the art, but that too has to be inspiring. They create the art, that's one sort of engagement and perhaps therapy, and then to see their art and then maybe see other children's art. I know some of you said you had some hanging there, and does anybody have a website or a collection where they display them?
We do. If you go to bchcreativearts.org, you'll see our blog, and there's a lot of art therapy, music therapy, kaleidoscope TV, poetry, a variety of things like that. And I mean, to the point of say, like what Wendy's been talking about, child life departments tend to just try to stay focused on the patients and their needs, right? So it's hard to build the infrastructure necessary to do all of that.
Right.
And so, again, that's sort of who we are as Child Life, is always trying to build those things. And we're lucky here at Benioff Children's Hospital to have some of those resources. We're even lucky enough to have, a relatively new building. You can see in my background that we've tried to put color and artwork and, natural lighting and those kinds of things into our environment. We do have some areas where children's artwork is displayed on the units. And then obviously not only through the website that I just mentioned, but also we televise. And so we're always sort of showing other kids' creations, or kids can co-host, on our live interactive shows, or something that they've made, they can talk about their artwork or their movie or things like that. Because, like my friends here, my Child Life friends, we're always trying to create that sense of community, because you feel much better when you're within a community of people that are going through something similar.
Right. And if there's a happiness meter, if we could bring that into this, how would you rate that on this? I mean, to me, it seems huge. And these kids are sick. How can they be happy? But I think art can make them happy. Maureen, can you speak to that?
I think it gives them a different outlet and a different period during their day where they can come and be themselves. So especially if art is something that they really take to, it's really a way for them to normalize and kind of be themselves outside of, all of the hospital and all of the medical things that they're normally experiencing. So I think it takes them back to kind of just normalcy, things that they like, which is, ultimately what we're all trying to get at, on the same level.
Yeah. You see that too, Wendy?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I mean, obviously, right, we're so about normalizing whatever medical experience they're going through, and we want them to be doing the things that they did outside of here, right? Art, sports, music, whatever it was. So I think that, they really enjoy when they're able to do that while they're here receiving medical care.
Right. What about the dogs, Michael? Yeah, you want to speak, but I wanted to ask you about the dogs.
Well, the dogs, I think, are a good example of that too, of normalizing it, right? Because, we can't allow everyone, sadly enough, we can't allow everyone to bring in their own dog from home. That would be a bit crazy if we brought them all in. So we try to have hospital dogs that are very well trained and very well screened, and and staff who are their handlers, because that equates a sense of normal to children, and that bond between dog and child is universally powerful. And so for us, it's an interesting combination of normalizing, like I think we're talking about, and also what I think is special about creative arts and the creative process is deepening into the meaning, making meaning out of this otherwise sort of, it feels random, it feels torturous. Why am I in the hospital? Why is this all happening to me? Mm-hmm. Maureen's example of that gorgeous piece of art, that's meaning making, right? I'm making meaning out of this experience that otherwise would feel like, why are the adults doing this to me? But now I'm actually creating my own way of saying, this is what this experience is like. And you can actually see it, and you can talk with the child about it. You can say, oh, I see the red parts are the hard part, and the breaking down was what you got to do to make your experience different, right? So it's a very active and engaged thing rather than that sort of passive victim role. And I think the arts are what do it for kids, mostly at least.
Right. We're talking about art, but there's also dance and cooking, but I would think art would be like the medium to be more transformative and easy too. Are there any mediums that they take to, say perhaps clay or drawing? And I know Purvi was saying they had saran wrap. I mean, anything that is something that always works, or how creative have you been during COVID to try to bring different kinds of art to these kids? How about you, Maureen?
I don't know if I'll say something always works because I think kids are really, really different. Our art therapist lately or recently has been using shaving cream paint, which is something super messy and probably something that kids don't experience a lot because, you know, like at home, who wants to let their kids play with shaving cream? So that's something that I think really piques kids' interest because it's different and it's a little bit messy and it's kind of gross, but it's super cool and it leaves a really cool design. Doing things, using mediums that are a little bit different
Are they
or
different
using
colors?
things in a different way.
Is the shaving cream like dyed different colors?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That would be both tactical and with their hands then, right?
Yep.
That's pretty neat. Wendy, what about you? What's a favorite medium for the kids there?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, I agree, right? Every kid is so different, but you know, I think kids too love to request maybe the things that they don't always get to play with at home as freely. So Play-Doh and messy painting and all those things that it's like, yes, even if the, you know, mom and dad are like, oh man, it's okay, it's here. We're gonna clean it up and we're gonna deal with it.
Right.
So, you know, I think you can never go wrong with just some of those basics and then sort of diving through and seeing what else that child might be interested in.
Right. I'm interested to see what the reaction to some of the doctors and nurses, their caretakers, have when they've seen the kids, you know, so involved and engaged.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes it helps them to relate to the kids on a different level, right? Like, I'm not your doctor just coming in and asking how you're feeling or talking about today's medicine or procedure or whatever. It's like, you know, I think a lot of them take cues from child life when we're there and we're present, or when a kid is playing and they, oh, hey, what are you doing? Or what did you draw? What did you make? So I think it just kind of gives us those moments to just be human to human and talk about what a kid is interested in that has nothing to do with their medical, you know, diagnosis or care that they're receiving.
Right, right. So what about you, Michael? Have you seen the reactions of the caretakers? Just, you know, I mean, by now it's a given that, you know, you're using art, but still it has to be, you know, you see them be inspired, you know, from the kids.
Well, Wendy said it exactly right? Like, you know, it bridges, it makes it relational, it makes it something to relate to. It makes it easier to build rapport with a child to say, oh, I didn't know you liked, you know, shaving cream art, you know, and suddenly you're in a funny little kid appropriate conversation, but you're the, you know, attending physician who maybe has forgotten how to build rapport with a child. So all of those things are so true. One thing that I would add is, like that example of the little gallery showing, you know, part of my experience of it was I knew that it was happening, and so I wanted to go see it, but I wasn't exactly sure which room it was in. So I went to the bone marrow transplant unit, and it was actually the nurse manager of that unit who saw me up there. And of course, I'm not up there all that often. And he said, "Are you here for the gallery showing?" He was really excited to
That's so cute.
room to make sure that I got to see it. And you could see that the whole staff really appreciated having the opportunity to celebrate the humanity of this young girl, rather than, you know, so often nurses and physicians feel like they are doing something that inflicts pain on children, or asking them to do things that are just so not humanizing, so dehumanizing, that to be able to celebrate the humanity of a child and the creativity of a child allows them meaning in their work as well, right? So we're not only helping the child and the family, but by secondary gain, we're also helping the rest of our staff feel like, oh, right, this is what we're doing and why we're doing it, because we want this child to not only, you know, have a life and be able to get out of the hospital and move forward, but not have her spirit crushed in the process, right? That's hard for us all to witness.
Right, right. So what people watching, you know, if they're wondering what they can do to help with these programs, what would you tell them, Wendy?
You know, I mean, donate and support, right? I mean, that doesn't have to be like, you know, some big thing, or, you know, creating your own program. Even donating just to your local child life programs, if you know, they're accepting donations. You know, getting involved with Kids&Art, I think it's also great too, right? It's serving so many kids in so many different areas. And you know, and I think just also being aware, right? Like what these kids go through and how we can support the programs that support them.
Definitely, definitely. So, Maureen, do you have any other, you had the cute picture, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's so sweet. So as we go through this, you know, it's obvious that they're feeling better, and it's a way of that they can communicate. But do you think it helps their healing as well too?
Yep, I have another picture I wanted to show you guys. So this is a kind of this is a 3-part picture for you. We had a patient, he was 16 years old, and he was in a motor vehicle accident. So he had some strength loss, and he really had to work hard he was in our rehabilitation unit, so to really gain that muscle strength back. So he started working with the art therapist, and she did have to modify, she modified a stress ball and some of the paintbrushes for him to be able to utilize. And painting and drawing was something that he really liked before his accident, but this is his first painting in the month of May. Put it up nice and close. So it's pretty abstract. It's kind of, you know, he really needed a lot of help to be able to move the paintbrush all around the canvas. But still, you know, very, very enjoyable for him. And then when he did his next painting, we can start to see that there's a little bit more purpose with what he's doing. So he's starting to be able to move around the canvas a little bit more, choose different colors, and kind of have some more autonomy with that. And then finally on his third one, sorry, the folding's not going well. It's much, much different than the first one that he did. So we're really able to see a difference in the different strokes that he's able to use from the first one, or from the last one to the first one. So we can really see that healing process. And you know how you had asked about the care team too, the care team was really able to see the progress that he was making, and the work that he was doing with our art therapist.
Does he, like in that instance, did he talk about it, or was pictures doing the talking?
I don't know if he talked about it so much, but it's something that he very much liked to do, and it was something that would made his therapy much easier versus just having to move his arm up and down in therapy. Like, this was an actual action with a reaction that he was going to move his arm and also be painting. So it made it a little bit easier for him to do, if that makes sense to everybody.
Wow, yeah. It would be rewarding, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, nobody likes to just exercise, but we want, you know, something to come of it. And to come out of it was his paintings. So it was very cool.
Right, right. So now during COVID and all that, have you not been able to have maybe some of the families participate, or siblings? Was that something you could do before and not now, or how is that being handled?
Yep, so we did have some restrictions regarding siblings were not allowed altogether. We're still on sibling restrictions right now. So that does play into how our, you know, our patients miss their siblings. They're used to being around them all the time. So I think that Zooming back and forth has become a little bit more comfortable for everybody, and FaceTiming. And then we did reduce our family members. It was just one at a time for a while, but now we're back to, you know, multiple family members, which is nice.
Oh, that is nice. That is
Yes.
nice. Yeah, Wendy, what about you? Any restrictions?
Yeah, still the same. So still sibling restrictions. So no siblings can come and visit, unfortunately. And we still only allow one adult caregiver per pediatric patient. So it's definitely not like what it used to, right? Like before, both parents could be there, or grandparents can visit, and siblings could be there, right? Utilizing playroom, teen room, all those important spaces. So it definitely is, you know, a lot more limited, but you know, they definitely are using all the modes of technology to connect while they're
Right. Yeah, for sure. And so maybe that's different, Michael, too. The access, you said they have the TV. I mean, you had a school, so there's no school now. Is there just more maybe Zoom? And
The one programming space that we have actually there are two. We've been able to reopen our bone marrow transplant activity room, but that was always just one child at a time anyway. And so that's why we were able to reopen that. But we also opened our school, and that too is just one student at a time with one teacher. And then of course, everything has to be cleaned afterwards between every single patient that comes in. So it's very labor intensive right now. And like Maureen and Wendy's programs, we can't have siblings right now. So our our staff are being very innovative. Like I hear Maureen and Wendy being with, even having group sessions via Zoom, where even with as young as infants, we'll have, infant time via Zoom, which you'd think would be pretty hard to do. But they're figuring it out. They're making it happen. And then our art therapist is using our internal television channel. And she has some pretty popular shows. So she sometimes gets as many as 30 kids at a time participating in her broadcasts.
Wow.
We're generating kits ahead of time that go to the various rooms where children might be wanting to watch. And then they have those supplies. And we're able to keep that going right now. So it's not quite what Purvi was saying even before we started about being creative of what you can find in a house, like saran wrap. So far I don't think we've used any saran wrap, but obviously that's a nice way to get the support directly to as many kids as possible.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank all of you just, now in between our little chat, because it's just amazing what you all do. And I think that, like you were saying, we need to raise awareness and to hear how you work with them and just to know that you're appreciated and what a difference you make in these kids' lives. I just want to thank you and let you know that I'm inspired. I've been spreading the word. And like I said, looking on the website and stuff was kind of fun to see some of the artwork and proves that Purvi said that it's going quickly, so we can all hopefully maybe buy some and donate that way. But anything else you guys want to add about your situations that has been maybe, and more inspiring with COVID? You talked about the virtual way of communicating with the kids. I really like the local, maybe have artists tried to come in, and I'm sure before, and visit with the kids, and now they can't do that either. So I think just having a variety of options for these kids might also work too, right? And be something of a certain pattern that you could get into, because it's been how long? All year we've been dealing with this, right? COVID. So it's kind of like normal now, unfortunately, probably, right?
It's the new norm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would definitely want to go back to what Maureen was saying earlier about encouraging any parent to understand that they are a consumer of pediatric healthcare and that they can ask for these kinds of services. And that may create some moments where, we have to struggle to figure out how to provide that support. But it's awfully good for our leadership in children's hospitals to know that these, we hear from families all the time that what we provide is what the medicine provides is only 50%, and that the other 50% is all of this that is emotionally, developmentally expressive, supportive in all those ways, so that children can still be children, families can still be families, no matter what it takes to be innovative and creative to get that care to them. So ask for it, right? Or even go to your local politicians and say, why are these services not provided in children's hospitals? We do have some laws in California that dictate that. And the more we encourage that to happen, the more, our hospitals will pay attention that we should be providing this.
Right, absolutely. I see Purvi's joined us. Hi.
Hello, I see a lot of chat. Everyone's saying, wow, that's impressive, healing in action. There's just a lot of support for all three of you, Thank you for sharing how creativity is an important part of your patient's healing. And you all do an amazing job. Thank you. I think there are a lot of parents in the session as well. So I think me also being a parent, I know child life was a very big part of our family, because my son, like Amay, was in the bone marrow transplant unit for 55 days, which meant you don't go in, you don't go out, you're stuck there, right? And luckily there was a child life volunteer who dedicated a lot of her time with him. And without that, there is really no healing or no seeing the bright side. So Kids&Art definitely came out of all of those experiences, because realizing that you can only reach few patients, right, from child life, you can't really reach all the patients. So that gap is what I felt as a parent, and that's really the reason why Kids&Art came to being, frankly speaking. So am I right or am I wrong? Is there that gap?
There is still that gap, absolutely. In fact, what we're trying to do even on a national level is identify what is the formula, if you will, for what should be the right size of staffing, so that we can take that to our hospital administrations or state officials and say, this really needs to be the expectation, just like it's an expectation with nursing care,
Mhm.
physician care, or so on and so forth, right? I think everyone here would agree that we're all believers in how important it is to support the emotional and developmental psychological needs of really anyone in the hospital, and especially children.
And how do common people do that? Like, I know that people don't think about these things unless it happens to you. That's just how human nature works. Until your child is for any reason in the hospital, they're not going to think about this, right? So how do you make people think about this? That, just like there are so many doctors, at least at Stanford and UCSF, they're teaching hospitals. There's a slew of doctors that come in your room when your child is diagnosed, like at least 11 to 12 doctors. There should be a child life, or there should be an art person in that mix. Why is that not happening? Right? How do you make that noise? But this conference is all about having conversations about improving quality of care. So I'm just asking you so that we can pose it to people who are listening and really make this a conversation. This is my mission in life. So.
Well, an additional thing that I would say is along those lines, along with all the other things that I've talked about, is, every person hopefully receives healthcare. And so, a child, when getting immunizations, at a very young age, why isn't there a child life there to help those children through that, right? And the more every time that question gets asked, and the more we get word out about this important, there aren't that many of us. There's some 6,000, is that right? I think in the country. And so the more we get word out and people are saying, oh, well, I don't know why we don't have a child life specialist, then they have to be accountable for at some point figuring out how to provide that care if enough demand is coming to them. That's what I would say, but I'm sure Maureen and Wendy have some great ideas.
I agree with Michael. We just, I don't think we're quite there as a profession. We're still, I think, what people would call a relatively new profession, to kind of bridge that gap to make sure that we're in every single place and every single time. We're still kind of just doing, I think, the best that we can. And I think that our numbers just don't support the work that we really could do if we had, bigger numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I always just encourage, families who even ask those to us, right? Because that's who they ask. Why aren't there more of you? Why this and that? And I just tell them, use your voice, right? Like, your voice will unfortunately probably speak a lot louder than mine. And so if you're getting a survey, or, hey, you want to provide feedback to that manager or that department, or we've even had people, go to our VPs and stuff and say, hey, I want to talk about this. This was so important in my child's care. So I think getting stories out there and awareness is kind of that first step.
I think another thing that we could even talk about is, Maureen and Wendy, keep me honest here, but Child Life started as play people in playrooms, right? And so we're good at working with kids. We're good at, we have people skills. Yeah. And, as a younger profession, we're still learning how to do the research, collect the evidence, the metrics that allow us to demonstrate, and also it's a very experiential piece, right? How do you measure emotions? How do you measure developmental progress, right? Those are slippery things to just put some metrics around. So the more we get partnership even with the community about how to do the statistics, the research, the collection of evidence that supports how centrally important this is, not only to this child's outcome, but all children, and of course the whole organization, for even things like we're more efficient at care because children are coping better. And so kids are going through the ORs and the operating rooms and the MRI machines more efficiently, which hospitals care about, while we as child life specialists are worrying about, is this child coping well? Is this child doing well emotionally? But if they're doing well emotionally, then they tend to go through the system faster and better. And that actually makes better outcomes for everybody, the child and of course the organization at the same time.
I agree, Michael.
Thanks.
Definitely.
You can tell I'm a manager, right? It's a little embarrassing that I have all the manager talk in my head.
No, it's good.
Great.
Lisa, there are some questions people have asked Q&A. I'll let you do that. I just had to jump in to add to this conversation just because of where that need came in from, and I had to share. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah, someone's asking if there are opportunities for hospitals from different states to collaborate on some creative programming. That's interesting.
There are some things that we've been talking about and trying to develop, things even like gaming from state to state. You know, it creates some challenges for us with internet safety kinds of issues. But, you know, and obviously Kids&Art is doing it right now, right? With reaching out to Michigan and to Alaska.
This is Wendy. This is Maureen.
That's so exciting. And, you know, I mean, it's true to even the conversation we've been having. We tend to focus so much on what's happening right here, right now, these kids that are right in front of us, that it's hard to lift up and have this longer range, broader vision of how could we work collaboratively, even across state lines, that kind of thing. And so it's starting to happen, but we don't have a lot of bandwidth to really sustain that.
Yeah, well, I would think in the past year, we've all gotten a little bit better at trying to communicate. That's all we've been doing, right? What about, is it the funding? Someone's asking, how incredible is art therapy part of your hospital's therapy provision, or is it just provided there by funding? What kind of, yeah, I think it's all volunteer, right? Or how, you correct me, Michael.
Do you want me to take this one, Maureen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want the manager to answer this?
I can answer for us, but
Please.
all of our alternative therapies here at our hospital are grant funded, and then all of our child life specialists are in our operating budget. And from hospital to hospital, that might vary depending on how departments are built and supported. Michael?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know, yes, it does vary from department to department. As an example, here at Benioff Children's Hospital, San Francisco, our whole school is completely philanthropically supported. That's why it's so robust. We would not be able to have that big of we have 10 teachers, and most child life departments don't have that big of a school. We have 6 creative arts people, and that is almost, that's like 90% donor supported in one way or another. Most of our programs for parents are donor supported. It all goes back to that challenge of children's hospitals having very low margins. Healthcare in general has very low margins, and children's hospitals has even lower margins. So that's why we are so connected to the community, because that's obviously where we can find resources that help us build these important programs. And that's why I also advocate for some kind of even governmental mandate, or at least a formula that demonstrates the financial bottom line efficacy. Hospitals and hospital organizations then have to start requiring that, or expecting it even as a standard. And the more our customers ask for it, the more it becomes as well.
Wendy?
Yeah, I mean, so Child Life here too is funded within, you know, the department budget, so that's great. And then when we get music therapy and art therapy, it would most likely have to be through grants and things like that, but we'll see.
We have an art therapist watching that says Arts and Medicine program at Sacred Hearts Children's Hospital in Spokane wants to thank you for this conversation, so inspiring to others in the field. I know Gavin has a lot going on with the fires and the election, but yeah, we should get something to him about this, as you said, you know, making it a given for these kids. I'm so inspired by this talk. Thank you. I've been so interested in pursuing this line of work. Any suggestions on where to start researching or getting information?
From a child life perspective, Michael, are you?
Go ahead.
Okay. From a child life perspective, a great place to get information is from the Association of Child Life Professionals. So that is childlife.org is the website. And they are our governing body. So they're kind of our end all be all of where they, they're our certifying body. That's where we take our certification test through. So that's a great place to start. And then also your local children's hospital is a great place to start volunteering and just getting a feel for being in the hospital and kind of just, getting acclimated to that kind of space.
Can we do that though now? We can't do that, can we, with COVID?
Probably not quite yet, but I'm hopeful that this isn't going to be part of our new normal.
Right. So we've got a parent here that was so happy for the sport. And as Purvi was saying, unless when you're in the hospital and you've got a sick kid, you're not really thinking of this. So as a parent, thank you for the voices. She said we need many more, and you guys do an amazing job. So I think people do want to help. And I said, I'm going to look at the art, but it's going fast, I know. But as I said before, it's just so great. And to share this and to share the creativity process, how important it is for the patients and everything, it's impressive. And I think people need to hear it. And I hope we've been able to spread the word today to everybody. Thank you, Purvi. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sejal and I used to be a volunteer with Kids&Art Foundation. I'm now the operations manager here at Kids&Art. If you'd like a session, please do consider a donation or consider being a sustaining donor and help us with our mission, Art Heals for all pediatric patients. Thank you.